colors, no labels.
That's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at wesaysaveit.org.
I'm Josh Robb, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. President Donald Trump pardoned more than 1,500 people charged in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol in 2021. He also commuted the sentences of several others. The Trump administration gave clemency to hundreds already convicted of felonies like assaulting police and destruction of property. The Department of Justice says that more than 730 people have been convicted of misdemeanor offenses in connection with the 6th of January. President Trump is also withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization. The president has long been critical of the agency. Trump says that the decision was based on the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The withdrawal will take at least a year, and the U.S. is obligated to continue funding. Back in Trump's first term, his administration started to withdraw from the agency, but then President Joe Biden halted the order when he was elected. And bitter cold temperatures are expected across the country this week. The historic storm sweeping parts of the U.S. and bringing with it Arctic temperatures to parts of the South. Forecasters say millions of people are under weather alerts with a rare blizzard warning in Louisiana's Gulf Coast. Parts of northern Florida are expected to see some snowfall, too. Many schools and businesses in the region have closed as a precaution. And that is your Spectrum News in 90.
I'm meteorologist Ian Cassett with your weather on the ones. Our forecast focus for today is a winter storm that is sweeping across the Gulf Coast in the southeast, leading to snowfall totals some places have not seen in decades. This is thanks to cold air that is found all across the south and the eastern half of the U.S. On the west coast, things are very different with the wildfire danger that has returned to Southern California. More details on this coming up with your weather on the ones.
It is a new day in the nation's capital as President Donald Trump gets down to work as the nation's 47th president. Good day. I'm Josh Robin. Developing right now, 18 states and Washington, D.C. are suing to block Trump's executive order that ends birthright citizenship. Attorneys say that Trump can't undo a right that's written into the Constitution. Several immigrant rights advocates have also filed a suit in the New Hampshire federal court. Trump has put pen to paper, signing close to 100 executive orders just hours after taking the oath of office. He's also pardoned more than 1,000 people charged in the January 6, 2001 riot at the Capitol. Trump also wants to make sweeping changes to policies on taxes, the environment, foreign aid, and much more. Our Taylor Popolars begins our team coverage from the White House. Taylor, what's on Trump's schedule for today?
Well, Josh, it's a busy and very chilly day here at the White House, the first full day of the second Trump administration. The president and Vice President J.D. Vance started off going actually to Washington's National Cathedral for a national prayer service, which customarily happens the day after a presidential inauguration as the new administration is kind of getting their feet wet. But Trump is set to come right back here to the White House. We believe he's going to meet with some congressional Republican leadership to discuss his agenda, especially for the first 100 days of his administration, and how he hopes that the Republican-led House and Senate will be able to help him get a lot of things passed into law. A busy first full day here. All the staffers working in the building behind us are kind of getting their things situated and their ducks in a row, and they tell us they're ready to get to work.
Taylor Popolars, thanks so much. Former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio and Oath Keepers founder Stewart Rhodes are now out of prison following President Donald Trump's sweeping order to pardon, commute sentences, and request to dismiss the cases of all of the 1,500 people charged in the 2021 deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol. Tarrio and Rhodes were two of the highest profile defendants and were convicted of the most serious charge, seditious conspiracy. Spectrum's Angie Gonzalez has the reaction to these sweeping pardons.
A day after a mob of his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election, President Donald Trump condemned the actions of rioters.
Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem.
4 years later, one of his first actions after retaking the White House, Trump issued pardons to more than 1,000 of those convicted with crimes that day. They include people found guilty of violent attacks on law enforcement officers who defended the Capitol.
6 individuals who assaulted me as I did my job on January 6th, as did hundreds of other law enforcement officers, will now walk free.
Trump was delivering on a campaign promise to free those he's previously referred to as hostages. His vice president also made this commitment earlier this month.
If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned.
Democratic lawmakers accused Trump of trying to rewrite the history of that day.
It tries to whitewash what was clearly an insurrection.
The pardons were met with elation from some Trump supporters and lawyers for January 6th defendants. Some have already been released from jail. There are others, however, convicted on charges in connection with the attack that feel much differently.
I was guilty. Okay, so I shouldn't take a pardon from anybody.
Just because the guy who started the riot says it's okay, it means absolutely nothing. It's very stupid. And in fact, it's making it worse. Now it's drawing attention to it.
President Trump has also ordered his next attorney general to seek the dismissal of roughly 450 defendants with cases still pending. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum News.
A once-in-a-generation storm is sweeping through the South right now, and millions of people are under winter weather alerts. Temperatures, meanwhile, falling to dangerous lows. Spectrum News meteorologist Ian Cassette joins me now. Ian, what are these conditions that you are seeing in the South?
Really unusual conditions. We're talking about a once-in-a-generation snowstorm because these places have not seen this much snow since the 50s and 60s. That goes for New Orleans, Tallahassee, which has not seen 2 inches of snow since 1958, 1989 Savannah, 1989 in Myrtle Beach. This is going to be one to remember for those in the South. But unfortunately, it's also going to lead to very difficult road conditions, and we don't have the infrastructure or equipment to clear out the snow very quickly. And with temperatures this cold, certainly that snow is going to stick. Where temperatures are well below average, 20 to 30 degrees below average across the east. Will things get warmer? A little bit. Wednesday, we'll see a little bit warmer out there, but this cold is expected to stick around here throughout the course of this week.
Okay, Ian Cassette, thank you. 2 brush fires are currently threatening structures in San Diego County, California. The Lilac Fire has scorched about 50 acres. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department issuing evacuation orders for homes in the area. A second fire, the Pala Fire, is also burning in that county. It's spreading rapidly and burned 30 acres so far. These new fires come as heightened risks are in place across Southern California due to critical weather conditions. President Trump makes quick work removing the United States from the World Health Organization. Officials from the WHO asking the U.S. to reconsider. That's the latest just ahead.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
Hey, pal. Ready for bed?
Hey, Dad, do we really have the fastest internet speeds?
Yeah, with Spectrum, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Can you use that to research volcanoes super fast?
Of course.
Can you learn to make a diorama super fast?
Yeah, you can do that too.
How fast exactly?
The absolute fast. When's your project due?
Tomorrow morning.
How much have you done? Okay. I'll get the glue.
The fastest internet whenever you need it from Spectrum.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
I'm meteorologist Ian Cassette with your weather on the ones. Let's talk about how rare this winter storm is. We will likely not see another one like it in our lifetimes, and I say that with good confidence because we have not seen one like this in many decades. We have winter storm warnings on southern Texas, along the coast of Louisiana, through the Gulf Coast of Florida, and up the Carolinas. There were even blizzard conditions in Louisiana that were reported for the first time in National Weather Service recorded history. So it has been quite the storm. We had snow coming down in Houston, the best snow that we've seen in Houston in years that has actually stuck to the ground because these temperatures are just that cold. Now, as we go forward, we're likely to see the most snowfall around Louisiana, New Orleans picking up more than a couple of inches of snowfall, southern Georgia and up the Carolina coastline where 1 to 3 inches of snow will be expected. This is all being driven by a low pressure system that moved out of the Gulf and is heading to the northeast. It's working with some Arctic air on the north side. That is a recipe for a southern snowstorm. So going through the rest of the day and into the evening, snow will carry on around the Panhandle. Tallahassee may pick up a couple of inches of snow for the first time in many decades. Georgia picking up that snowfall, in Savannah for the first time in late 80s could see a couple inches of snow there. There may be some sleet mixing in. That's a really important factor. More sleet, less snow is the way it works. That snow will carry through Tuesday evening. As we get into the overnight hours, snow will gradually come to an end, and by Wednesday morning it should be dry, but all the snow left on the ground along with the sleet will make roads very difficult to travel on, very slippery, and not recommended to be out on the roads because it'll also be very cold. Look at the lows for tonight. We're going to see those lows in the teens to 20s down in the southeast, negatives for Chicago and Columbus with this Arctic air in good place across much of the country. Coming up, we'll talk more about how long this Arctic air will last, plus the latest on the wildfires in Southern California with your weather on the ones here in the next 10 minutes.
If you're just joining us, here's a look at what you need to know. President Trump says he will impose steep tariffs on Mexico and Canada unless those countries toughen security at their borders. Trump making the announcement during an impromptu question and answer session with reporters on Monday. He said he was considering a blanket 25% tax on both nations beginning on February 1st. Also on the president's executive action to-do list, saving TikTok. Trump signing an executive order last night delaying TikTok's federal ban for 75 days. The president says he wants to consult with advisors to review national security concerns caused by TikTok. The extension gives the China-based owner ByteDance extra time to sell the stake in the platform or reach a deal with Trump. And that is what you need to know. President Trump has pardoned or commuted the sentences of those who stormed the Capitol, including those who beat and injured police officers. And that was in the very place where Trump was sworn in yesterday. Spectrum's Washington reporter Cassie Simeon here with us today to talk more about this. I'm wondering, Cassie, obviously there has been a lot of reporting of this. What's been the reaction of elected officials to Trump's blanket pardon and commutations?
Well, Democrats were quick to remind the American public that of those 1,500 that were pardoned, as you mentioned, there were 172 who actually pled guilty to assaulting law enforcement officers. And they're reminding people that Trump ran on a pro-law enforcement platform. And so Republicans now are going to have to grapple with that. His own vice president said just last week that only those who were peaceful should be pardoned. Those that assaulted law enforcement should not be included in the pardon. Trump obviously did not feel that way. There were some senators who backed up Vance, including Katie Britt and Josh Hawley, some staunch Republicans. So now on Capitol Hill, a lot of Republicans, I feel like, are going to be avoiding reporters asking this very question. How do they feel about those pardons? And I predict at least most of them will say, well, I haven't seen the pardons in full to read the text for myself. That's an easy cop-out on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, the smart analysis on your part. Big picture, Cassie, I wanted to ask you, what do you think Donald Trump will see as success in this second term?
I think it depends on the given day, right? We saw a lot of executive orders on day one talking about energy and the border. He's really putting this America First isolationist policy on display on day one. That is going to be something that we are going to see over the next several weeks and months. He's already pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. We're seeing that Remain in Mexico policy be reinstated, though Mexico hasn't necessarily said they will buy in yet, and they will be critical to actually letting that policy be successful, right? If Mexico doesn't enforce it, it's going to be difficult for Trump to actually allow Remain in Mexico to be a policy of his that's enforceable. So I think it will be interesting to see also how he approaches the war in Ukraine and Russia. He promised to end the war on day one, and it is day one. We haven't seen any movement from either Putin or Zelensky, though both have congratulated Trump on his swearing in. So I think there will be a lot of isolationist America First policies put forth by this president. I think that will be his overarching legacy. What he defines as a win, what he wants his legacy to be, I think it depends on the day you ask him.
All right. Well, Cassie Simeon, thank you so much. We have our work cut out for us for the next 4 years.
Thanks, Josh.
Part of President Donald Trump's flurry of executive orders was the U.S. withdrawing from the World Health Organization. That move is drawing criticism from public health experts. Spectrum's Katie Streit has those details.
It's no secret, President Donald Trump has long been critical of the United Nations Health Agency, the World Health Organization, also known as WHO. Now, he's taking action.
What is this one? Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Trump withdrawing the U.S. from WHO is due to how the organization handled the COVID-19 pandemic. But it's a move the agency hopes the Trump administration reconsiders.
There is no better example than the COVID pandemics. We have learned our lesson. We have seen that virus doesn't stop at the border and that we need a global cooperation in the health area.
The European Commission says the U.S. withdrawal from WHO is concerning. In the last decade, the U.S. gave WHO about $160 to $815 million every year, in addition to adding onto its knowledge and people leading to its success. And the U.S. leaving the agency doesn't just have international repercussions. Health experts say the move could put America in a vulnerable situation.
We have threats on the horizon, things like bird flu or avian flu that we're responding to right now. We just saw yet another outbreak of something called Marburg, which is like an Ebola virus. We want to keep that out of the United States.
While Trump signed the executive order Monday, there hasn't been a formal withdrawal yet. There is an obligation for the U.S. to continue funding it for a year. WHO says the organization looks forward to having a conversation in hopes of maintaining a partnership. Katie Streit, Spectrum News.
Prisoner exchange years in the making, taking place in the final hours of Joe Biden's time in office. The Taliban has agreed to swap 2 Americans being held in Afghanistan for 1 Taliban member serving a life sentence in the United States. Ryan Corbett's family says he had been a prisoner for almost 900 days. He was living in Afghanistan with his wife and his 3 children, doing non-governmental organization work before the collapse of the Afghan government. Little is known about the other American freed, William McKenty. Meanwhile, Taliban member Khan Mohammed was flown from the United States to Qatar. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences in prison back in 2008 after being convicted on a drug and narco terrorism charges. Next, an All-American swimmer is taking his craft to new heights. His story in our high school spotlight. That's after this quick break.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
It's on Friday. I'll be on the field. You're gonna be there?
Is that the football guy?
Can you give me a minute? Thanks.
So, do you have any plans on Saturday? Because, I was thinking you're...
Hey, is that the guy?
Dad!
Yeah, it's the guy!
Oh, I found Mr. Squishy.
Louder!
Here, there, everywhere. Reliable internet where you need it most. With Spectrum.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Our daily decisions can have a massive impact on the quality of our lives. From the foods we eat to the places we live and everything in between, our health can send us on a quest for answers. Join me as we break down the science and politics behind some of the most important topics affecting our communities and learn what we can do about them.
Watch Exploring Your Health on the Spectrum News app. Available on all of your favorite devices.
I'm meteorologist Ian Cassette with your weather on the ones. It has been a very cold start to the week, and we get images like this during this time of the year. Carla Wells from Valders, Wisconsin, showing you the frozen lake shores of Lake Michigan. If you'd like to send in a shot like this, you can send it in through the Spectrum News app and send it right to us to get it on air. It's been very chilly because we had that blast of Arctic air that sunk all the way to the south. Well, we are going to see a reinforcing shot of some cooler air into the latter part of the week, so we're not done just yet, but it's not going to be the magnitude that what we saw on Monday into Tuesday. For the next few days, very cold, and down in the southeast where that snowfall has been. In Atlanta, we're going to go from 37 degrees Wednesday to 44 degrees Friday. We'll stay in the 20s in Chicago, even Orlando staying in the 50s to the end of the week. Most of us are enjoying or not enjoying this winter cold with even some snow that we saw from Texas up to the Carolinas. How far are we off from normal? Well, we know it's January, it's going to be cold, but these temperatures are well below normal. Raleigh is nearly 20 degrees below normal on Wednesday. Tampa nearly 20 degrees below, or more than 20 degrees below on Thursday. It will eventually start to warm back up, but only gradually across the Midwest. It's been the West Coast that has been warmer than average with this pattern, but also dry. So our system moves out off to the east. It will be mostly quiet in the east after that, with just some snow showers in the Midwest, but in the west it's been really, really dry, and that has not helped things when it comes to those wildfires down in Southern California. You factor in how dry it's been, not just in the short term and long term going back to last year, and also we've had really dry air with strong winds coming out of those Santa Ana winds, and that's why we do have red flag warnings that are in effect. So that will continue through Tuesday afternoon around Southern California, LA, Ventura County, down even to San Diego County. The winds are expected to subside here today, but they're going to pick up again tomorrow with some dry air in place. So red flag watch is in place. The strong winds have been across the mountains where we could see gusts up to 60 plus miles per hour, maybe even up to 80 miles per hour. They'll come down into Tuesday evening. Then jumping ahead to Wednesday, those winds will pick up yet again across the ridges and the mountains. So this is going to be the concern this week, but I come bearing some good news. Models indicate rain chances could be going up by this weekend, and that certainly is going to help California.
The Oval Office has a new look now that President Donald Trump is back in office. Flags representing each military branch are on display, along with a painting of the former President Andrew Jackson. There are family photos on a small table, including one of his mother, and more than 30 challenge coins and badges. Trump also found a letter from former President Joe Biden in the Resolute desk.
Wow. Thank you.
Can you read that on the outside?
Maybe we should all read it together.
Let's read it.
Well, maybe I'll read it first and then make that determination.
That sounds great.
Also returning to the Oval Office, Trump's Diet Coke button. We, alas, don't have a photo of the button, but the Wall Street Journal says that the red button is inside a wooden box. It's a dream of every swimmer to finish ahead of the pack. Spectrum's Catherine Smith tells us about a Florida swimmer who's had his dream for gold come true.
It's the rush at the start of a race. It's the feel of the water, the ebb and flow of swimming that hooked Gaither High senior Aiden Levine.
You go to the pool, you don't hear anything, everything goes silent. It's a great feeling.
The pool is where Aiden does his best work. And in his final high school swim meet, it's where he produced his golden moment. Aiden competed at the Class 3A State Swimming and Diving Championships and won the silver medal in the 100-yard fly and the gold in the 100-yard backstroke with an automatic All-American time. His championship moment was years in the making.
I was just super happy again, and just it was really special for my coach Jason to put it on me because he talked about this for like 4 years.
Aiden's been perfecting his craft since he was 5 years old when he first started competitive swimming. He swims year-round with the T-Bay Club team, and a lot of the hours he put in the pool showed up in a big way at the state championships.
Just all the hard work, because you think about it so much and just all the time, just you catch yourself thinking about it like throughout the day, just randomly, and just to get it done, it's such a great feeling.
Aiden plans to continue swimming at the next level. There are several colleges recruiting him to swim for their teams. He'll have a future doing what he loves best.
I just love the water, and I was like successful when I was younger, and I just really loved it, and I fell in love with the water.
That passion is paying off. In Tampa, Catherine Smith, Spectrum News.
I'm Josh Robin. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
You put in unlimited hours and unlimited passion because your small business has unlimited potential. Spectrum Business is built to connect you with that potential. With Spectrum One for Business, you get fast, reliable internet, advanced Wi-Fi, and a mobile line, all for only $49.99 per month. That's more connectivity at a better price than other providers. And with Spectrum One for Business, the value only grows. With award-winning multi-layered security to defend all your devices. If it's connected, it's protected. Get all the connectivity your business needs for the lowest price around. Only $49.99 per month. That's your business made limitless. That's life unlimited.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
I'm Josh Robb, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. President Donald Trump pardoned more than 1,500 people charged in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol in 2021. He also commuted the sentences of several others. The Trump administration gave clemency to hundreds already convicted of felonies like assaulting police and destruction of property. The Department of Justice says that more than 730 people have been convicted of misdemeanor offenses in connection with the 6th of January. President Trump is also withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization. The president has long been critical of the agency. Trump says that the decision was based on the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The withdrawal will take at least a year, and the U.S. is obligated to continue funding. Back in Trump's first term, his administration started to withdraw from the agency, but then President Joe Biden halted the order when he was elected. And bitter cold temperatures are expected across the country this week. The historic storm sweeping parts of the U.S. and bringing with it Arctic temperatures to parts of the South. Forecasters say millions of people are under weather alerts with a rare blizzard warning in Louisiana's Gulf Coast. Parts of northern Florida are expected to see some snowfall, too. Many schools and businesses in the region have closed as a precaution. And that is your Spectrum News in 90.
I'm meteorologist Ian Cassette with your weather on the ones. Our forecast focus for today is a winter storm that is sweeping across the Gulf Coast in the southeast, leading to snowfall totals some places have not seen in decades. This is thanks to cold air that is found all across the south and the eastern half of the U.S. On the west coast, things are very different with the wildfire danger that has returned to Southern California. More details on this coming up with your weather on the ones.
It is a new day in the nation's capital as President Donald Trump gets down to work as the nation's 47th president. Good day. I'm Josh Robin. Developing right now, 18 states and Washington, D.C. are suing to block Trump's executive order that ends birthright citizenship. Attorneys say that Trump can't undo a right that's written into the Constitution. Several immigrant rights advocates have also filed a suit in the New Hampshire federal court. Trump has put pen to paper, signing close to 100 executive orders just hours after taking the oath of office. He's also pardoned more than 1,000 people charged in the January 6, 2001 riot at the Capitol. Trump also wants to make sweeping changes to policies on taxes, the environment, foreign aid, and much more. Our Taylor Popolars begins our team coverage from the White House. Taylor, what's on Trump's schedule for today?
Well, Josh, it's a busy and very chilly day here at the White House, the first full day of the second Trump administration. The president and Vice President J.D. Vance started off going actually to Washington's National Cathedral for a national prayer service, which customarily happens the day after a presidential inauguration as the new administration is kind of getting their feet wet. But Trump is set to come right back here to the White House. We believe he's going to meet with some congressional Republican leadership to discuss his agenda, especially for the first 100 days of his administration, and how he hopes that the Republican-led House and Senate will be able to help him get a lot of things passed into law. A busy first full day here. All the staffers working in the building behind us are kind of getting their things situated and their ducks in a row, and they tell us they're ready to get to work.
Taylor Popolars, thanks so much. Former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio and Oath Keepers founder Stewart Rhodes are now out of prison following President Donald Trump's sweeping order to pardon, commute sentences, and request to dismiss the cases of all of the 1,500 people charged in the 2021 deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol. Tarrio and Rhodes were two of the highest-profile defendants and were convicted of the most serious charge, seditious conspiracy. Spectrum's Angie Gonzalez has the reaction to these sweeping pardons.
A day after a mob of his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election, President Donald Trump condemned the actions of rioters.
Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem.
4 years later, one of his first actions after retaking the White House, Trump issued pardons to more than 1,000 of those convicted with crimes that day. They include people found guilty of violent attacks on law enforcement officers who defended the Capitol.
6 individuals who assaulted me as I did my job on January 6th, as did hundreds of other law enforcement officers. Will now walk free.
Trump was delivering on a campaign promise to free those he's previously referred to as hostages. His vice president also made this commitment earlier this month.
If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned.
Democratic lawmakers accused Trump of trying to rewrite the history of that day.
It tries to whitewash what was clearly an insurrection.
The pardons were met with elation from some Trump supporters and lawyers for January 6th defendants. Some have already been released from jail. There are others, however, convicted on charges in connection with the attack that feel much differently.
I was guilty. Okay, so I shouldn't take a pardon from anybody.
Just because the guy who started the riot says it's okay, it means absolutely nothing. It's very stupid. And in fact, it's making it worse. Now it's drawing attention to it.
President Trump has also ordered his next attorney general to seek the dismissal of roughly 450 defendants with cases still pending. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum News.
President Trump's cabinet is beginning to take shape as Marco Rubio is sworn in as Secretary of State. Our Daniel Grimes joins us now from Washington. Daniel, what was Rubio's confirmation expected to be? Was it expected to be this easy in the Senate?
Yeah, so Josh, when Trump first announced Rubio, he was greeted with praise from Democrats and Republicans who pointed to Rubio's many years in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and also the Select Committee on Intelligence. Now, the vote happened on Inauguration Day, and this morning Rubio was officially sworn in by Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, during his time in the Senate, he warned about the dangers from China, and that ideology will be very much present when he meets with the foreign ministers of India, Japan, and Australia today. He plans to strategize on the best ways to blunt China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. Now, Rubio says he will uphold Trump's America First strategy, and he's also going to ask 3 questions when making decisions.
Does it make us stronger? Does it make us safer? And does it make us more prosperous? If it doesn't do one of those 3 things, we will not do it.
Now, Rubio is the first Latino to serve as Secretary of State. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis appointed the state's Attorney General Ashley Moody to fill Rubio's Senate seat, Josh.
And Daniel, there are more confirmation hearings that are scheduled for this week. What other hearings and votes can we expect in the coming days?
Yeah, so John Radcliffe, the CIA director nominee, and Pete Hegseth, defense secretary nominee, those are the next two likely to receive a full vote in the Senate as they've proceeded past the committee vote. Now, albeit by just one vote in Hegseth's case. As for confirmation hearings, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations nominee, Representative Elise Stefanik, she has her hearing today, and we also can expect a flurry of others in the coming days. Now, notably, we still don't know when the Health and Human Services nominee, RFK Jr., or Director of National Intelligence nominee, Tulsi Gabbard, when either of those hearings will take place, Josh.
Daniel, thank you so much. President Trump declares an emergency at the southern border. Coming up, a deep dive on the plans by the new administration with our team at the border.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app.
Dinner time, off the internet. Devices in the basket, all of them.
Smartwatch. Connect as many devices as you want, and then some. With Spectrum, you get the fastest internet speeds and advanced Wi-Fi that can power all the devices in your home. Okay.
I have to take this.
Get fast and reliable connections. Get Spectrum.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
I'm meteorologist Ian Cassette with your weather on the Ones. Let's talk about how rare this winter storm is. We will likely not see another one like it in our lifetimes, and I say that with good confidence because we have not seen one like this in many decades. We have winter storm warnings on southern Texas, along the coast of Louisiana, through the Gulf Coast of Florida, and up the Carolinas. There were even blizzard conditions in Louisiana that were reported for the first time in National Weather Service recorded history. So it has been quite the storm. We had snow coming down in Houston, the best snow that we've seen in Houston in years that has actually stuck to the ground because these temperatures are just that cold. Now, as we go forward, we're likely to see the most snowfall around Louisiana, New Orleans picking up more than a couple of inches of snowfall, southern Georgia and up the Carolina coastline where 1 to 3 inches of snow will be expected. This is all being driven by a low pressure system that moved out of the Gulf and is heading to the northeast. It's working with some Arctic air on the north side. That is a recipe for a southern snowstorm. So going through the rest of the day and into the evening, snow will carry on around the Panhandle. Tallahassee may pick up a couple of inches of snow for the first time in many decades. Georgia picking up that snowfall, and Savannah for the first time in late 80s could see a couple of inches of snow there. There may be some sleet mixing in. That's a really important factor. More sleet, less snow is the way it works. That snow will carry through Tuesday evening. As we get into the overnight hours, snow will gradually come to an end, and by Wednesday morning it should be dry, but all the snow left on the ground ground along with the sleet will make roads very difficult to travel on, very slippery, and not recommended to be out on the roads because it'll also be very cold. Look at the lows for tonight. We're going to see those lows in the teens to 20s down in the southeast. Negatives for Chicago and Columbus with this Arctic air in good place across much of the country. Coming up, we'll talk more about how long this Arctic air will last, plus the latest on the wildfires in Southern California with your weather on the ones here in the next 10 minutes.
If you're just joining us, here's a look at what you need to know. President Trump says he will impose steep tariffs on Mexico and Canada unless those countries toughen security at their borders. Trump making the announcement during an impromptu question and answer session with reporters on Monday. He said he was considering a blanket 25% tax on both nations beginning on February 1st. Also on the president's executive action to-do list, saving TikTok. Trump signing an executive order last night delaying TikTok's federal ban for 75 days. The president says he wants to consult with advisors to review national security concerns caused by TikTok. The extension gives the China-based owner ByteDance extra time to sell the stake in the platform or reach a deal with Trump. And that is what you need to know. President Donald Trump is launching a major crackdown on immigration, turning one of his biggest campaign promises into executive orders. The Republican has declared a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border. Trump also ended the use of a border app that allows migrants to enter the country legally. And he wants to end birthright citizenship. Emotions already running high at our southern border, where appointments to enter the United States were canceled minutes after Trump took the oath of office. Spectrum's Adolfo Muniz joins us from Hidalgo, Texas. Adolfo, what are you seeing on the ground at this hour?
Well, Josh, as you can see, I am right now at the International Bridge of Reynosa, Hidalgo, and just a few minutes ago, we witnessed the first deportations under Trump watch. That's right, the promised deportations by President Trump have begun. Now, I have to point out that this is usual here at the border to see those buses bringing migrants usually to the other side of the border, but this time is the first time that happens under President Trump. We counted about 10 people inside. Now, here at the border yesterday, there was a protest. Right on the very first day that President Trump came into office, local organizations say that they are gearing up for another battle that they say they already fought, to fight President Trump's immigration agenda. Now, the International Bridge at this moment is really quiet precisely because of the change in immigration laws that have made it that many migrants on the other end are stuck right now. Josh, back to you.
Okay, so this border app, Adolfo, it gave appointments to 1,400 people a day at 8 border crossings. I'm wondering what the second plan is, a plan B is, for those who had these appointments.
Well, Josh, the reality is that for those migrants, it's a really heartbreaking situation. Yesterday, the CBP-1 application was canceled while there were people standing in line for their appointment. All pending appointments were canceled immediately. That means that for all of those migrants who were already weathering out the cold, standing right here on the other side of this International Bridge, at a moment's call, they got rejected and they had to stay on the other side of the border. Now, what is their plan? Well, there are a lot of uncertainties. What seems certain is that the only legal means of entry for these migrants to request asylum is over. It was the only way, because migrants who cross the border illegally, they were returned right away and they wouldn't qualify for asylum. So the question comes out now, what's going to happen? As President Trump promised, there are no more border crossings. The border is closed to illegal immigration. Back to you, Josh.
And Adolfo, one final question. We only have about 30 seconds, but the deportations that you saw were limited. He promises much bigger deportations. How are cities reacting and preparing for the possibility of large raids?
Judge, that's a really good question. I was speaking yesterday precisely to some local organizations on the ground in Matamoros, Mexico, and they're expecting a lot of migrants and a lot of Mexican citizens also to be deported to Mexico, and they're working with local authorities to devise a plan to receive all of those migrants, the Mexicans and the non-Mexicans, Judge, at the U.S.-Mexico border. Adolfo Muñiz, back to you.
Okay, Adolfo, thank you so much for your reporting. 2 brush fires are currently threatening structures in San Diego County, California. The Lilac Fire has scorched about 50 acres. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department issuing evacuation orders for homes in the area. A second fire, the Pala Fire, is also burning in that county. It's spreading rapidly and burned 30 acres so far. These new fires come as heightened risks are in place across Southern California due to critical weather conditions. Prisoner exchange years in the making, taking place in the final hours of Joe Biden's time in office. The Taliban has agreed to swap 2 Americans being held in Afghanistan for 1 Taliban member serving a life sentence in the United States. Ryan Corbett's family says he had been a prisoner for almost 900 days. He was living in Afghanistan with his wife and his 3 children, doing non-governmental organization work before the collapse of the Afghan government. Little is known about the other American freed, William McKenty. Meanwhile, Taliban member Khan Mohammed was flown from the United States to Qatar. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences in prison back in 2008 after being convicted on a drug and narco terrorism charges.
Heavy pressure, Howard delivers downfield, and Smith, he's got it!
Boom, the Ohio State University has new hardware courtesy of the Fighting Irish. Just ahead, a look at that emotional win for Buckeye fans.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
When you know you can go anywhere.
Hello, I'm Sharon Tazwell. You're watching Spectrum News coverage of President Donald Trump's first 100 days in office. Time right now is 5:20 at the White House, where the president is making an infrastructure announcement. Let's listen.
People would be shocked at. We're starting off with tremendous investment coming into our country at levels that nobody's really ever seen before, and they're very happy with the fact that I won the race and that they feel confident in their investments, and it's big money and high-quality people. So my first day back from having a nice life, it's my honor to welcome 3 of the world's leading technology CEOs, and in the case of Larry Ellison, it's well beyond technology. He's sort of CEO of everything. He's an amazing man, an amazing business person. But to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America. As you know, there's great competition for AI and other things, and they're coming in at the highest level. We're joined by Oracle Executive Chairman Larry Ellison, SoftBank CEO, my friend Masa Yoshi-san, and CEO of OpenAI, and I would say the by far the leading expert based on everything I read, Sam Altman. So that's great that you're coming in together. That's a massive group of talent and money. Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it. in the future, a new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States and very, very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately. This monumental undertaking is a resounding declaration of confidence in America's potential under a new president. Let me be a new president. I didn't say it, they did. So I appreciate that, fellas, but it'll ensure the future of technology. What we want to do is we want to keep it in this country. China is a competitor and others are competitors. We want it to be in this country, and we're making it available. I'm going to help a lot through emergency declarations because we have an emergency. We have to get this stuff built. So they have to produce a lot of electricity, and we'll make it possible for them to get that production done very easily at their own plants if they want, where they'll build at the plant, the AI plant, they'll build energy generation, and that will be incredible. But it's technology and artificial intelligence, all made in the USA. Beginning immediately, Stargate will be building the physical and virtual infrastructure to power the next generation of advancements in AI, and this will include the construction of colossal data centers, very, very massive structures. I was in the real estate business. These buildings, these are big, beautiful buildings. They're going to employ a lot of people. And physical campuses and locations currently being scouted nationwide. They're making their choices of locations. I think they have their choice. I'd like to ask Larry, Sam, and Masa to say a few words and just talk about a little bit about what they're doing. And if you have any questions, and then we'll go into a couple of other subjects also. But this is, to me, a very big thing. $500 billion Stargate project, I think, is going to be something that's very special. It'll lead to something that could be the biggest of all. So, Larry, maybe we'll start with you, and we'll go down the line. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. We certainly couldn't do this without you. It would simply be impossible. AI holds incredible promise for all of us, for every American. We've actually been working with OpenAI for a while and with Masa for a while. The data centers are actually under construction. The first of them are under construction in Texas. Each building's 500,000 square feet. There are 10 buildings currently being built, but that will expand to 20 and other locations beyond the Abilene location, which is our first location. The kind of applications that we're building, to give you an idea, maybe the most charismatic and the one that I think touches us all is electronic health records, not just maintaining electronic health records, but by looking at electronic health records, understanding the condition of doctors, better understanding the condition of their patients, and being able to provide healthcare plans that are much better than they otherwise would be. A doctor in Indian River Reservation would be able to see how a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering would treat the patient, or a doctor at Stanford would treat the patient. We actually provide all of that information, all of that guidance to the doctors who are treating cancer patients or patients with any other kind of disease, made possible by AI. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'm going to pass it to Masa, but this is a very exciting program for Oracle to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. That really helped. That's good. That's great. I feel tall now. Thank you. Well, Mr. President, last month I came to celebrate your winning and promised that we will invest $100 billion. And you told me, oh, Masa, go for 200. Yeah. Now I came back with 500. Because this is as you said yesterday, this is the beginning of golden age.
Golden age.
Of America. This is one great example, I think. Right? We wouldn't have decided to do this.
I think so.
This is the beginning of golden age. We wouldn't have decided unless you won.
And yesterday, we agreed, we signed to make this happen.
That's great.
Because of this day.
Very nice.
So we would make this happen. We would immediately start deploying $100 billion with a goal of making $500 billion within next 4 years, within your term. Yeah. Right? Because of your success. So we are very, very excited to do this. And our partner is, of course, SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle, and additionally investing partner with MGX. On top of that, we have the technology partner NVIDIA, and of course Microsoft has been very, very supportive to Sam and continue to support all our success. This is not just for business. As Larry said, this will help people's life. This will help solving many, many issues, difficult things that otherwise we could not have solved with the power of AI. I think AGI is coming very, very soon. And then after that, that's not the goal. After that, artificial super intelligence will come to solve the issues that mankind would never, ever have thought that we could solve. Well, this is the beginning of our golden age. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Fantastic.
Sam.
I don't have too much to add, but I did want to say I'm thrilled we get to do this in the United States of America. I think this will be the most important project of this era. And as Masa said, for AGI to get built here, to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, to create a new industry centered here, we wouldn't be able to do this without you, Mr. President. And I'm thrilled that we get to. I think it'll be an exciting project. I think we'll be able to do all of the wonderful things that these guys talked about. But the fact that we get to do this in the United States is, I think, wonderful. So thank you very much.
Could you just say one word? I hear so many positive things about what it's going to do for medical research and for solving things, cancer and all the different problems. How will AI help us with the fight against the various problems, diseases, etc.?
These guys can maybe share more about some of the work they're doing there. I think they'll jointly be some of the leaders about driving progress here. But I believe that as this technology progresses, we will see diseases get cured at an unprecedented rate. We will be amazed at how quickly we're curing this cancer and that one and heart disease, and what this will do for the ability to deliver very high quality healthcare, the costs, but really to cure the diseases at a rapid rate, I think will be among the most important things this technology does.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Can I speak and answer that question, Mr. President? So we're currently working on. Should I step on this? Okay. All right. No. I'm not that tall. I'm not that tall.
You look even better.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things we're working on, again, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
Thank you, sir. Great, thanks. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, we have a couple questions.
Yeah, just 1 second, we'll finish up. But these are highly respected guys. I was shocked with Larry because I don't even think Larry does this stuff. You did a very good job for a guy that doesn't do it much, right? But he's so respected, and the group, and it's really an honor. But for Larry to be here and do this is very unusual because he doesn't do this stuff. He doesn't need it. He does, and you don't need it, do you? Huh? You don't need it. But I think it's an honor to the country. It's a great honor that this group, these are the top people, that they're going to do it, and they're going to do it here, and we're going to make it as easy as it can be. A $500 million Stargate project comes in addition to a separate pledge between $100 and $200 billion from, as we know, from Masa, that we talked about before. Also $20 billion from DMAC, which was great. And we have many others that are coming. Some I just announce it. It's easier. But with some, I know them, and they're so highly respected, I'd rather do it this way. Many would like to do it this way, but we're letting the world know what's happening. This is money that normally would have gone to China or other countries, but in particular China. In total, before the end of my first full business day in Washington in the White House, we've already secured nearly $3 trillion of new investments in the United States, and probably that's going to be 6 or 7 by the end of the week. Tremendous amounts of money are coming in for many things other than even AI. AI seems to be very hot. It seems to be the thing that a lot of smart people are looking at very strongly. And our country will be prospering like never before. I think that's true. And it's going to be the golden age of America. As I say, yesterday we had the most ambitious, action-oriented day of any administration in history. No, there's never been a first day like yesterday, as you know. I signed a sweeping slate of executive orders to stop the invasion of our borders. I launched a government-wide effort to defeat inflation and bring down the cost of daily life and bring down the cost of energy, magnificently bring it down. And when energy comes down, Larry, I'd say generally speaking, when energy comes down, everything else comes down. The prices of food and the prices of everything else come down. Energy is that's the big baby. And we declared a national energy emergency to drill, baby, drill, our term that we use. We're going to drill, baby, drill like never before. We ended destructive DEI mandates across the federal government and returned our country to a merit-based system and a common sense system. As you know, the Supreme Court gave us a decision on merit, where things in this country can be based on merit now instead of a lot of different rules, regulations, and things that really put our country at a big disadvantage. We permanently stopped government censorship and restored free speech. That was signed yesterday. We renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Sounds so beautiful, the Gulf of America, and returned the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley. They took off the name, and he was actually a great president. He was a very, very successful businessman. He ran for governor of Ohio. He won and did a great job as governor, ran for president, and he won. He was assassinated, ultimately, in his second term, unfortunately. But he was the tariff king, and I don't think he was as bad as I am. I think I believe in him even more than him, but he believed in him very strongly. And he raised massive amounts of money. Our country was at its richest from 1870 to 1913. We had the most. That was when we were the richest, relatively speaking. We were the richest during that period of time. That was tariffs from other countries. And our administration's moving with unprecedented urgency and speed to confront every single crisis facing us, and we'll get the job done. And again, I want to thank Sam and Masa and Larry for being here. It's an honor to have them. and we'll take a few questions if you want.
Can I ask about some of the executive orders? You would agree that it's never acceptable to assault a police officer.
Sure.
Right? So then if I can, among those you pardoned, DJ Rodriguez, he drove a stun gun into the neck of a DC police officer who was abducted by the mob that day. He later confessed on video to the FBI and pleaded guilty for his crimes. Why does he deserve a pardon?
Well, I don't know. Was it a pardon? Because we're looking at commutes and we're looking at pardons. Okay, well, we'll take a look at everything. But I can say this. Murderers today are not even charged. You have murderers that aren't charged all over. You take a look at what's gone on in Philadelphia, take a look at what's gone on in LA, where people murder people and they don't get charged. These people have already served years in prison, and they've served them viciously. It's a disgusting prison. It's been horrible. It's inhumane. It's been a terrible, terrible thing. I also say this, you go to Portland, where they wrapped police officers, shot police officers, nothing happened to anybody. You go to Seattle, where they took over a big chunk of the city and people died. Portland, a lot of people died. Wait a minute. And you go also, take a look at Minneapolis, because I was there and I watched it. And if I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city wouldn't even exist today. People were killed and nobody went to jail. So these people have already served a long period of time, and I made a decision to give a pardon. Joe Biden gave a pardon yesterday to a lot of criminals. These are criminals that he gave a pardon to, and you should be asking that question. Why did he give a pardon to all of these people that committed crimes? Why did he give a pardon to the J6 Unselect Committee when they burned and destroyed all documents which showed that they did what was wrong, not me? Wait a minute. Why did they give a pardon to all of his relatives, his brother who made millions of dollars, to all these different people? He gave pardons. That's the question you should be answering. All right, go ahead. Yeah, please.
If I can just follow up about your Steve, can I just follow up on that really fast?
No.
I just want to ask.
Go ahead.
You said
Tell us about your meeting with Speaker Johnson, Senator Thune. Did you reach any conclusion on this one big?
Pretty much. I think we have a good situation now. It's been in some ways made simpler by Los Angeles because they're going to need a lot of money. And generally speaking, I think you'll find that a lot of Democrats are going to be asking for help. So I think maybe that makes it more one-sided. I think we're going to do very well. Look, we're going to take care of Los Angeles. I'm going there. I'm going to North Carolina, which has been abandoned by the Democrats. And I'm going to North Carolina, very importantly, first. I'll be there on Friday. And then I'm going from there to Los Angeles. And then I'm going to Nevada. And I'm really going to Nevada to thank them for the vote, because we won Nevada overwhelmingly. And that's usually a Democrat vote, and I just want to go there to thank the people of Nevada for the big vote. So we'll be making that. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, the leaders of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers were freed following their pardons yesterday. At the time, back in 2021, you urged them to stand back and stand by. Is there now a place for them in the political conversation?
Well, we have to see. They've been given a pardon. I thought their sentences were ridiculous and excessive. One of the guys took down a flag that was an anti-American flag, and he was given years in jail. I don't know the exact number, but he was given many years in jail. I thought it was very excessive. And at least the cases that we looked at, these were people that actually love our country, so we thought a pardon would be appropriate, yeah.
Mr. President, is it also true in your conversations with Republicans today that you asked them to consider recess appointments for cabinet officials?
I think, yeah, if it's needed. I don't think it's going to be needed. Marco, as you know, got passed overwhelmingly with 99-0, which is pretty amazing. Marco's going to do a great job, Secretary of State, but he just got, I guess he was the first one and just got approved. That's some vote, 99-0, and the nothing was a vote that he would have gotten if we wanted to do it. But you know whose vote that was? Who's doing a great job right now as vice president.
Did you also talk about some sort of a trade or a deal involving wildfire relief in extension for a debt?
Well, what I really want to have done, I was talking about this with the guys back in the Oval Office. Los Angeles has massive amounts of water available to it. All they have to do is turn the valve, And that's the valve coming back from and down from the Pacific Northwest, where millions of gallons of water a week and a day, even in many cases, pours into California, goes all through California down to Los Angeles, and they turned it off. It's off now. The valve goes, it turns toward the Pacific Ocean, and all that water goes pouring into the Pacific Ocean. If they did what I told them to do, they wouldn't do it because politically they didn't think it was good. I think it's great politically. I think they're dead politically. What they've done, they've destroyed the city. What they've done to that city is unbelievable. The sprinklers, their sprinklers in there like these right here that you see, none of them had any water in them. They didn't have any water. The fire hydrants, 40% of them had no water. The brush was just dry. Everything was dry. The sprinklers on the lawn weren't allowed to even be used. So, you know, everything was dry, and it was an inferno. They created an inferno. So we're demanding that they turn the valve back toward Los Angeles right now. It's not even believable that they haven't done it. Just so you know, they have a valve, and it turns like, think of a sink, but multiply it times many thousands of times the size of it. It's massive. And you turn it back toward Los Angeles. Why aren't they doing it? They either have a death wish, they're stupid, or there's something else going on that we don't understand. But we want the water that they're throwing away to be used for California. And that includes the farmers of California. You know, when you drive up north, you see all of the land. I couldn't believe it. I was with Devin Nunes when he was a congressman and some other congressmen from the area, and we're driving up and we're on the highway, and I keep looking at these farms, and the land is bone dry, and then you'd see an acre, about an acre or 2 acres, with the most beautiful green plants growing in it, the most beautiful it's rich stuff. And you look at the soil, and it's so rich. That soil is almost the equivalent to like Iowa soil. It's phenomenal, but it's got no water. But the reason it has no water, I said, do you have a drought? No. I said, what do you mean you don't have a drought? Look at the thing, it's dry as a bone. The reason you have like an acre is because they say you can farm 1 acre, but no more, because they didn't want to waste water. But they throw the water into the Pacific Ocean. These people are crazy. So we're going to be issuing an executive order demanding that they immediately let that water come down through California. Farmers, even people living in Beverly Hills. Now, those people have been a lot of them are wiped out. Believe it or not, you know, they were having restrictions, Larry, you know about this. They wanted to restrict you to 38 gallons of water a day. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. When you're a rich person and you like to take a shower, 38 gallons doesn't last very long. And they have all this water, and it's really good water. Up high, Pacific Northwest, some comes in from Canada, a nice country, by the way, comes in from Canada, and it comes all the way through California, and they're restricting it. You even have the half pipes, you know, the half pipes, the cut pipes, big ones, bigger than this room, and they're going all the way down, and they're bone dry, and they could be loaded up with water. No, but isn't it incredible that they don't do it? And it's to protect the Delta smelt. It's a fish that's doing poorly anyway. But I said, how are you protecting the Delta smelt by not giving it water? It's a fish. It needs water. Nobody can answer that question.
Can I ask about your
President Trump, TikTok, Mr. President?
Well, let me do this first.
Are you open to Elon buying TikTok?
I say it.
Are you open to Elon buying TikTok?
I would be if he wanted to buy it, yeah.
And on your inauguration,
I'd like Larry to buy it, too. I have the right to make a deal. So the deal I'm thinking about, Larry, let's negotiate in front of the media. The deal, I think, is this, and I've met with owners of TikTok, the big owners. It's worthless if it doesn't get a permit. It's not like, oh, you can take the U.S. The whole thing is worthless. With a permit, it's worth like $1 trillion. So what I'm thinking about saying to somebody is buy it and give half to the United States of America, half, and we'll give you the permit. And they'll have a great partner, the United States. And they'll have something that's actually more valuable because they have the ultimate partner, and the United States will make it very worthwhile for them in terms of the permits and everything else. But so think of it, you have an asset that has no value or has $1 trillion value. It all depends on whether or not the United States gives the permit. So what I'm saying is let the United States give the permit, and the United States should get half. Sounds reasonable. What do you think?
Sounds like a good deal to me, Mr. President.
Yeah. He can afford it, too.
Mr. President, you're a president who has long said that you back the blue, but aren't you sending the message that assaulting officers is okay with these pardons?
No, the opposite. In fact, I'm going to be letting 2 officers from Washington Police, D.C. I believe they're from D.C., but I just approved it. They were arrested, put in jail for 5 years because they went after an illegal, and I guess something happened where something went wrong. And they arrested the 2 officers and put them in jail for going after a criminal, a rough criminal, by the way. And I'm actually releasing. No, I am the friend of police more than any president that's ever been in this office.
More than 400 of the people that you pardoned, though, assaulted officers. So I want to ask you about the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He said, this is a week ago, he said, if you committed violence on January 6th, obviously you should not be pardoned. Why is your Vice President wrong?
Well, only for one reason. They've served years in jail. They should not have served, excuse me, and they've served years in jail. And murderers don't even go to jail in this country. And we had 1,500. We have 16 under review. As you know, we commuted about 16 of them because it looks like they could have done things that were not acceptable for a full pardon. But these people have served years of jail, and their lives have been ruined. And in many cases, listen to me for a second. Stop interrupting. They've served years in jail, and if you look at the American public is tired of it. Take a look at the election. Just look at the numbers on the election. We won this election in a landslide because the American public is tired of people like you that are just one-sided, horrible people in terms of crime. You don't talk about all the people that have been killed and what happens to those murderers. Murderers get no time. You take a look at some of these DAs. They go after political opponents, but they don't go after people that shoot people in the street. They're caught. They know where they're living. They know everything. They don't even go up to pick them up anymore. They just let them live there. They know all about it. They have their pictures. They have the tape of the shooting, and they don't even go up and you're talking about this. No, we pardoned people that were treated unbelievably poorly. In the history of our country, there's never been anything take place like this. They're still looking for them, but they're not looking for the murderers, the people that are killing everybody. We are, though, and we're getting them out of the country. We just started that. We're getting them out of the country, and they're going to be gotten out of the country fast. They came in illegally from jails and from prisons. They killed many people. Some of them killed many people. About 50% of them killed more than one person. They were released into our country. That's what we're focused on, not the kind of nonsense you're talking about.
You've called for a ceasefire in Ukraine. If Vladimir Putin doesn't come to the table to negotiate with you, will you put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely.
And do you think that the war should be frozen currently along
the war should have never started. If you had a competent president, which you didn't, the war wouldn't have happened. The war in Ukraine would have never happened if I were president. But that couldn't happen because the election was rigged. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, there's been some debate within your orbit over whether or not to keep or eliminate H-1B visas. What's your position on that? Do you want to keep H-1Bs or do you want to get rid of them?
I like both sides of the argument, but I also like very competent people coming into our country, even if that involves them training and helping other people that may not have the qualifications they do. But I don't want to stop. And I'm not just talking about engineers. I'm talking about people at all levels. We want competent people coming into our country. And HB1, I know the program very well. I use the program. Maitre d's, wine, experts, even waiters, high-quality waiters. You got to get the best people. Now, then you go into people like Larry, and he needs engineers, and Massa needs, and this gentleman needs engineers like nobody's ever needed engineers, right? So we have to have the quality people coming in. Now, by doing that, we're expanding businesses, and that takes care of everybody. So I'm sort of on both sides of the argument, but what I really do feel is that we have to let really competent people, great people, come into our country, and we do that through the H-1 program.
Mr. President, are you looking to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico in an effort to force negotiations sooner on USMCA?
No, it's really not on USMCA. It has nothing to do with that. They've allowed, both of them, and Canada very much so, they've allowed millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here. They could have stopped them, and they didn't. And they've killed 300,000 people last year, my opinion, have been destroyed by drugs, by fentanyl. The fentanyl coming through Canada is massive. The fentanyl coming through Mexico is massive. And people are getting killed, and families are being destroyed. I mean, the son gets killed, and the family is a basket case for the rest of their lives. I mean, I've seen mothers that thought they'd heal. They never heal. They say it gets worse with time. It gets worse with time. They lose their boy. They lose their baby. They lose their young daughter to fentanyl poisoning. And I had that talk with President Xi the other day, too, of China. I said, we don't want that crap in our country. We got to stop it. I would have stopped it. I had a deal with him where he was going to give the maximum penalty, which in China is the death penalty for drug dealing. And he was all said he was going to give the maximum penalty to fentanyl dealers. If they send to the United States, they were going to get the death penalty. And of course, Biden didn't pick that up. I had that deal all done. It was all wrapped up. We were going to have it done. And then the election went, let's put it nicely, didn't go the proper way. I'm trying to be nice about it. It was rigged. And we had an incompetent president elected, and he never followed up on that deal. But he should have followed up, because if they got the death penalty, they wouldn't be sending fentanyl to Mexico, Canada, and other places.
How much will the tariffs on China be, Mr. President? How much will the
We're thinking about that, too. We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
How soon on those tariffs?
Probably February 1st is the date we're looking at.
Sir,
For Mexico and China, we're talking about approximately 25%.
Have an update on the Gaza ceasefire, and are you planning to travel to the Middle East soon?
We're thinking about going to the Middle East, not yet. We have a thing called the hostages are coming back going on right now, and they are coming back. Some of them have been very damaged. You look at the young lady with her hand practically blown off. You know how that happened, right? Did you know how that happened? When you find out, you're not going to be too happy because it was terrible. But the hostages are starting to come back. If I weren't here, they wouldn't be back ever. They would have never come back. They would have all died. If this were done a year earlier, if Biden would have done this deal a year and a half, 2 years ago, or frankly, it should have never happened. October 7th should have never happened. Nobody should be dead. But through weakness, they allowed it to happen, and then it was a disaster from them. But you go back just 6 months ago, many of these young people were living. Young people don't die like that. They're just dying. And young people aren't dying at 22 and 23 years old. They don't die. But now they're dying, and you wonder why they're dying. They're being killed, and they have been killed. But they say 6 months ago, you would have had 11 more living hostages. Think of that. 6 months ago, but Biden couldn't get it done, and it was only the imposition that I put on as a deadline that got it done. But it's a very sad situation. It should have never happened. I'll tell you, 2 things should have never happened. 3 things. Inflation should have never happened. It would have never happened, except for what they did to energy and their crazy spending. And Ukraine would have never happened. Never. By the way, Russia never would have gone into Ukraine. I had a very strong understanding with Putin that it would have never, ever happened. He disrespected Biden. Very simple. He disrespects people. He's smart. He understands. He disrespected Biden. And also, the Middle East would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. It would have never happened. October 7th would have never happened, but it did happen. So this is the cards I've been given. And we're getting the hostages back. That would have never happened under Biden. They would have never come back. They were just dying not that slowly. They were dying or being killed. But that was what was happening.
Are you going to keep sending weapons to Ukraine, or are you going to turn off the tap soon?
Well, we're looking at that. We're talking to Zelensky. We're going to be talking with President Putin very soon. And we'll see how it all happens. We're going to look at it very soon. One thing I do feel, the European Union should be paying a lot more than they're paying, because under Biden, I mean, we're in there for $200 billion more. Now, it affects them more than it affects us. We have an ocean in between, right? Little thing called an ocean. The European Union should equalize. We're in there for $200 billion more than the European Union. I mean, what are we, stupid? I guess the answer is yes, because they must think so. But the European Union takes advantage of us tremendously on trade, and they now take advantage of, and always have. If I didn't get involved years ago, my first term, one of the first things I noticed was that they're not paying enough. They're not paying, and a lot of those countries weren't even paying. The NATO countries, they weren't paying. Only 7 out of 28 were paying. We were one of them. And Poland was one, and they had a few of them that were paying, and some were paying very proudly. Usually, the closer to the borderline of Russia they were, the faster they paid, okay? The ones that were further away tended not to pay so fast. And one thing on that, I think they should lift their number not to 2%, but to 5%. NATO should be at 5%. Not at 2%. 2% is ridiculous, yeah.
Did you ask President Xi in your conversation about Ukraine, you asked him to get involved in helping settle that? Can you tell us about that?
I did, yeah. I said, you ought to get it settled, because he's not done very much on that. He's got a lot of power, like we have a lot of power. I said, you ought to get it settled. We did discuss it, yeah.
Mr. President, you launched a crypto coin the other day. Do you intend to continue selling products that benefit yourself personally while you're president?
Well, I don't know if it benefited. I don't know where it is. I don't know much about it other than I launched it. I heard it was very successful. I haven't checked it. Where is it today?
You made a lot of money, sir.
How much?
Several $billion, it seems like, in the last several days.
Several billion? That's peanuts for these guys.
Sir, you talked about the letter from President Biden. Can you give us some sense, broadly speaking?
Yeah, he wrote me a nice letter. I mean, I did open it last night. And I didn't know. Peter said, did you get the letter? I said, wait a minute, let's see the letter. It's sort of a tradition. You put it in the drawer, especially of the beautiful Resolute desk, right? And I opened the drawer, and there it was. It said to number 47. And it was a very nice letter. I mean, I could show it, because I think it was a nice letter. Maybe I will. I think.
What did you say in terms of that?
Just basically, it was a little bit of an inspirational type letter, you know. Enjoy it, do a good job. Important, very important, how important the job is. But I think it was a nice letter. I think I should let people see it, because it was a positive for him in writing it. I appreciated the letter.
Mr. President, were security concerns at all a factor when deciding to move your inauguration indoors?
No, not at all. No, not at all. It was just cold. Hey, look, if we would have, you know, I just went out to the helicopter, right, we said goodbye. That's a tradition. As long as before it used to be a stagecoach, and then helicopters came along. But that's been a tradition. You go out and you do that. And we stood there for 10 minutes, and I'll tell you what, people would not have been able to get through that day. That was cold. It was sort of interesting. Don't let the sun fool you. Tell me something. Sunny days can get very cold, can't they? Because that was so freezing yesterday. You couldn't have gotten through it. It would have been. And the answer is no, it wasn't security. With that being said, I thought the Capitol, the Rotunda, was beautiful. 72 degrees, unbelievable sound. You know, it's like being in an opera house. I could see people wanting to do it there rather than outside.
Why did you remove John Bolton's security clearance, sir?
Because I think there was enough time. It's we take a job. You take a job. You want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we? I thought he was a very dumb person, but I used him well, because every time people saw me come into a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought that he'd attack them because he was a warmonger. He's the one that got us involved, along with Cheney and a couple of others, convinced Bush, which was a terrible decision, to blow up the Middle East. You know, we blew up the Middle East and we left. We got nothing out of it except a lot of death. We killed a lot of people. And John Bolton was, one of those guys, a stupid guy. But no, you can't have that for life. You shouldn't expect it for life.
You mentioned with President Zelensky, will that take place here, and when and where will you meet with?
I don't know. I mean, look, President Zelensky would like to have peace. He's told me that very strongly. He'd like to have peace, but it takes two to tango. We'll see what happens.
When will you meet with President Putin?
Anytime they want, I'll meet. I'd like to see that end. Millions of people are being killed, and they're being killed. It's a vicious situation, and they're now largely soldiers. A lot of people have been killed in the cities. They look like demolition sites. Buildings, massive buildings bombed and coming down. The thing with Ukraine is that many more people died than you're reporting. You're not reporting the real numbers, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm blaming maybe our government for not wanting to release those numbers. Many more people died than what you know about. When those big buildings come down and they say 2 people were injured, no. Many people, thousands of people are being killed. But the real killing now is on the war front. It's a very flat land. And the only thing that stops a bullet is somebody's body. And you have young soldiers. So Russia's lost about 800,000 soldiers now. Ukraine's lost about 600 or 700,000. I think the numbers are low that they're giving out. But they've lost massive numbers of young soldiers. And that war should stop. It's very flat, it's beautiful farmland, and it's flat and really beautiful in a different kind of a way, but they don't have any protection. The only thing that stops a bullet is a body. And those bodies are stopping a lot of bullets, and they're being decimated.
President Donald Trump speaking. He announced a $500 billion private sector investment to build artificial intelligence infrastructure in the U.S. Trump was joined by the CEOs of OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle. Their joint venture, an AI data center project. It will be called Stargate. He also took questions from reporters. So joining me now live from the White House, Spectrum News and national political reporter Taylor Popolars. Taylor, journalists were hungry to ask Trump questions. The president was really hitting the ground running, and with his infrastructure announcement as well as a plethora of executive actions. In his news conference, he also talked about TikTok. He said he'd be open to Elon Musk buying it, or even Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle. Tell us more about that.
Well, Sharon, this is a reminder for people who may have forgotten what it was like to have Donald Trump in the White House just a few years ago, that this is how he conducts things. Traditionally, this would have been a fairly significant infrastructure investment announcement where you had 3 major tech CEOs alongside him pledging to invest at least $100 billion, as much as $500 billion into building AI infrastructure and data centers here on U.S. soil. And we listened to that at the start of this press conference. But then, as you just alluded to, the president has taken a series of questions, is still taking questions, and made news on several fronts. Yes, he did talk about TikTok and repeated the goal that he has shared on social media, that he thinks the U.S. government should have a 50% stake in that social media app in order for it to remain open and usable here in the U.S. But he also talked about his decision just last night to issue essentially blanket pardons for all of his supporters who broke into the Capitol 4 years ago, including those who injured over 140 police officers. And you heard the president time and time again, as he was asked, essentially back and support his supporters who injured police officers, while also claiming that he is the most pro-law enforcement president in history. Obviously a bit of a contradiction there. He also talked about a lot of foreign policy, the war in Ukraine, and how he's in communication with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, how he plans to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin soon. He talked about the wildfires out in Los Angeles and how he plans to visit not only Western North Carolina on Friday, that is still recovering from Hurricane Helene, but then he's going to travel out to Los Angeles, where he made some baseless claims about how the water situation impacted the wildfires there. Then he said he's going to visit the state of Nevada, a key battleground. He said he wants to thank supporters for his election win there. So this was a reminder. I'm just scratching the surface of what Trump touched on, but he made so much news just now. We're going to have to tick through all of it, but I think the pardon kind of news stood out the most, even upstaging the infrastructure announcement that he scheduled this event around.
Yeah, and actually, Taylor, I'm just seeing here in the monitor beside me that President Trump is just now wrapping up his news conference. The president met with House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune today. There's a lot on the president's agenda, but also narrow majorities in both chambers.
That's right. And, you know, this meeting happened behind closed doors. We thought we might get a chance to speak with Speaker Johnson and Majority Leader Thune right outside here on the White House driveway, but they ended up not coming out to talk to the cameras. But as we just heard Trump outline himself, he is still pushing lawmakers to pass one giant bill. Without getting too into the nitty-gritty, this is a bill that could include tax cuts, it could include immigration provisions, but it also will likely include much-needed billions of dollars in aid for the wildfires that destroyed large sections of Los Angeles. And Trump talked about how he spoke with the Speaker and the Majority Leader, saying in his mind, because of the wildfire aid that's going to be needed, he thinks that Congress should lump all of these together into one bill. Lawmakers have been divided over whether they should be split into two bills or not, but Trump said that the conversations went well today and that Congress is going to continue to negotiate that and hopefully move on it in the coming weeks.
Taylor, the Senate confirmed Marco Rubio as Secretary of State this morning. Where do the other confirmations stand?
Yeah, Rubio got a unanimous vote out of the Senate, 99-0. He got sworn in this morning by Vice President J.D. Vance, so he is officially in that job. It looks like a few other nominees will likely be voted on over the next couple of days. Some key national security-related positions, like the Homeland Security Secretary, for instance. But there are some nominees who are still even struggling to get their confirmation hearing scheduled because of potential pushback from senators. Ones we're watching closely are Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead Health and Human Services, Pete Hegseth, who had his first hearing last week to be the Defense Secretary, among a few others. Sharon.
Yeah, Marco Rubio is the only official cabinet member right now. Taylor Populares, thank you so much for your time and political insight and for braving the cold outside the White House. And thank you at home for watching. I'm Sharon Tazwell. More news now on Spectrum News.